President Trump, should President Trump sit down for an interview with the special counsel, Robert Mueller? Joining us now with reaction, President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow. Jay, great to see you. I just asked the very same question of Greg Jarrett and Judge Pirro and every other attorney, Joe DeGeneva I've talked to. Almost every attorney is universal in saying absolutely not. Can you give us an update?
Sure. Well, the first thing is, look, you've got to start with this proposition. The depth of corruption that led to this investigation and that, frankly, continues to permeate this investigation is unprecedented. So you have to start with that. You mentioned in the earlier segment the irregularities, and that's being kind, of what took place here. So you have to start with the question of whether the president would sit for an interview with the proposition, is there a constitutional basis upon which that interview can take place? Now, frankly, it is the position of the legal team, and it's been pretty clear on this in the last couple of weeks, that our position is that there is not a constitutional basis to move an interview forward. And what I mean by that is the Article 2 power of the presidency is very clear. And the idea that you would have a series of questions involving the president's motives for particular actions as it relates to Article 2 power would frankly be inappropriate in our view, unconstitutional. So then you ask yourself, does that answer the question? Well, look, the president stated that he wants to do an interview. I will tell you the position of the legal team is that we do not advise that. However, there continues to be ongoing discussions and dialogue with the Office of Special Counsel to see if there is something that can be worked out that we would be comfortable with. Short of that, the answer, of course, is no. But if ultimately the one that makes that determination, though, the lawyers can advise, is the President of the United States. So he will make that decision, obviously, in consultation with his legal team.
But Jay, I know you as an attorney, and by the way, you have been my counsel. But my question, if you told me absolutely not, I don't think you would appreciate or accept me saying I'm going to do it anyway. That's my, I've known you for 20 years. You know what, though? I
understand that, Sean, but you're not the President of the United States. So there's a different calculus that goes on there for him.
We know that.
Look, clearly, our inclination, the inclination is no. And I could put 100 lawyers in the room, and 100 of them are going to say that. I make the joke when I'm talking to reporters that, if we put the president up for an interview, you're going to have 12 lawyers saying, I can't believe they did it. If you don't put the president up for an interview, those same 12 lawyers are going to say, what are they hiding? But if you look at the constitutional issues that are implicated by an interview, it's very serious. It raises very serious constitutional issues that go to the heart of, as you mentioned earlier, separation of powers, Article 2 authority. I've been saying that for a year, and nothing's changed in that regard. Ultimately, the decision's up to the president. We will give advice, but there are ongoing discussions to see if there could be something worked out here.
I look at the team that Mueller's put together. The president has tweeted about the team he's put together. I look at Andrew Weissman's atrocious record, including, putting innocent people in jail, overturned 9-0 in the Supreme Court, overturned 5-4 overturned in the Fifth Circuit. Tens of thousands of people lose their job, withholding exculpatory evidence. Now, I'm not trying to drag you into that battle, but I've got to ask you, is it the two questions would be about obstruction and collusion. There's no evidence of collusion. Can we compare what they're accusing the president of with Adam Schiff's tape, where he's excited because he's talking to a Russian that has dirt on Donald Trump, supposedly, turns out to be a hoax? Is it collusion? Hillary paid for Russian lies before the election? And it was used to get FISA warrants?
There's two things here. First of all, I think we got to be clear on this. This idea that there's been no evidence put forward on any type of collusion between the president and Russians. I mean, no one's put evidence forward on that. Now, that's number one. Number two, let me tell you this. When people say the word obstruction, I want everybody to understand the context in which this is arising. This is arising in decisions that a president makes under his authority under Article 2. Who's going to work for him? Who's not going to work for him? Where things are developed, where they're not. What policy positions they take, what policy positions they do not. The idea that that would constitute some kind of violation of the law, to me, seems not only a bizarre legal theory and untested, but frankly out of order under our Constitution. But let's go back. You're using these examples of the people involved in the investigation on the legal team. Let's go to what started this investigation in the first place. You had an unverified dossier put together by Christopher Steele, who ends up getting fired by the FBI for linking. James Comey wants a special counsel, so he leaks a memo that he created based on a conversation that he had with the president. Now, if an FBI agent did that, could you imagine the repercussions of leaking that memo? Then it gets even better. You've got the number 4 at the United States Department of Justice. I know you've already talked about this, Bruce Orr, whose wife is working for Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr. And what is her job? Her job is to work with Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence officer who's putting together the dossier against the president. Now, you know what? The fact is, no one could, it's hard to believe that those are really the facts. You know what the problem is, Sean? Those are the facts. And really, no one has disputed any of those facts. So the problem here is a foundational problem. That's why I say the irregularities and the corruption involved in the process from the beginning is really unprecedented. So all of that factors into the decision that's ultimately made, whether there'll be an interview or not, or whether it'll be written questions or not. That decision, we're close to making that decision. I don't ever give dates.
How is this going to end? When is this going to end?
Yep. I think it ends soon. I cannot give you the date because here's what happens. Let me give you the process. Bob Mueller, under his authority, will issue a report. That report, though, does not go to the Congress. This is not an independent counsel. It would go to the Deputy Attorney General, who's the acting Attorney General, and then he will determine what goes forward. At the same time, quite frankly, we are developing a report that is going to lay out all of these issues that we've talked about. So that's how, this is not a trial. And people need I think people understand that now. This is not a trial in the traditional sense of anything. This is a political process that is going forward. And I want to be clear here. The constitutional issues, which is the reason I was involved in this case in the first place, in fact, are the major issues that this investigation turns on. There are serious constitutional implications of this, not just for this president, but for the presidency. And that's what history will remember. So that's why we've got to be very careful and very direct on how we move forward.
Let me ask you one last question, if I may.
Yep.
The president has the power to declassify all of the subpoenaed documents that Congress has been withholding. And they've not been living up to the subpoenas. I don't think I'd get away with that, even with you as my great attorney.
Yeah.
The president has the power to demand they be literally unredacted and released. Why doesn't he do that?
Well, look, he's respecting a process that's in place that his White House team, that is not a decision we make as his private lawyers, as counsel of the president. We are not the White House counsel. So that's a decision that's made within the context of the White House and their purview. That decision, I'm sure, is being discussed and the issues are being discussed. So I'm not going to defend what has or has not happened there because that's outside of our jurisdiction. Needless to say, and I think this is fair to say, and the American people are asking for this, transparency is important here. And I think one of the aspects of transparency is what are in these documents. And if it doesn't put our national security at risk, I would think that it should be something that should be released and declassified. But you know what? I said, you're not the president. I'm not the president either. I don't get to make those decisions.
What about Bruce Orr and this relationship with Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr, and Christopher Steele? And the FBI was paying Christopher Steele?
Well, look, they fired Chris Steele because he's leaking information, which seems to be an ongoing scenario. But yet they're Bruce Orr still having conversations with him. And you've seen the most recent pieces that have been posted by John Solomon and others. I mean, the fact of the matter is that when you look at this in its totality of circumstances, Sean, it boggles the mind that this is not a regular investigation. This is irregular. I said the corruption at the outset of this has just been unprecedented. And I think the American people are seeing that for what it is.
All right. When we come back, Jesse.